All right. Welcome to the next week of sales training. Um, One of the things I am definitely going to try to get the communication going on with here, because I did give the directive for everyone to do the personality test and to be ready for the meeting today. All right.
Mhm.
So everyone in here is a sales lead. So let me talk about a few things. One of them is that as of right now, we are not executing our level one messages in a timely fashion, not getting them done in any kind of scale. And what's ending up happening is that it's taking Manoj and I to log in together for a few hours and start sending messages because it's not occurring. So I did set an expectation just before the weekend, and that is 50 level one contact messages. So let me talk about what that looks like so that everyone has a sense of it. All right. The level one contact message is very simply using the CRM system, going through it as you see, a new person that's a new connection, using the script, picking a conversation starter based off of the about, filling in the blanks and sending it. If you take 10 minutes to do each one of those messages, it's going to take you 8 hours to send 50 of them. And so the whole point of this process is replicatability. We're trying to get that time down so that everyone gets comfortable with that process, and that takes practice, which means literally the only way that it's going to happen is if everybody is on board practicing that behavior and getting those level one messages out. Because at first it might take you 10 minutes a message. Very quickly after that, you'll go down to 8 or 5 minutes a message. And then eventually you'll be doing it roughly the same time that Manoj and I do, which is about 2 minutes a message. Once that happens, you're only looking at about 2 hours a day for being able to knock out those 50 messages, which is way easier as far as scale is concerned. So, getting everyone on board with that process and making sure that that's getting executed, that is going to be a constant goal. Now, let's
One,
talk about that
yeah,
because,
one thing if I can say here, if
mhm.
I just interject here, if you guys need us to have some sort of a role play with you, or actually log in and share the screen on LinkedIn and we watch it as you do it, we are. I'm available to do that, and I'm sure you are too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Any amount of handholding that is necessary so that you can get the confidence. Or, as said before, you can put the LinkedIn profile link along with the conversation starter that you picked if you need to get buy-in from anyone who's currently in the sales team channel. But those messages have got to go out. And if we're going to have the sales leads trying to support, the people that are under them and then eventually trying to take on new level one interns, this is a skill that we all must have. So, I can't get you all to level two or to level three and be able to give you advanced sales training if we're not, if we're selling cookies, we're not knocking on doors right now. So if we're not knocking on any doors, we're not going to sell any cookies. Those conversations aren't even starting because we're not knocking on the door. So that has to be a commitment from everyone. Is everyone that's in the channel right now committed to getting those 50 contacts done a day, or if they're having trouble with that, reaching out so that that goal doesn't get unfinished by the end of the week? Am I on board with everyone on that?
Yes.
Karan, are you down with that?
Yes, I'm sure.
Okay. Grav, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
fine.
All right. So I need everyone's buy-in here because we have got to be able to completely master this skill and have it be just something that we do so that we are able to bring new people onto the team and be able to help them. Otherwise, what that looks like is Manoj and I having to split off from all of the other stuff that we're doing and trying to handhold on those level ones because other people are not able to move up to level two. And I don't want that to occur. We have to lead with those behaviors. People are only going to give us credibility as leaders if we're able to execute that behavior ourselves. So please, if you're having trouble doing that, if it feels, uncomfortable, if you're having difficulty picking conversation starters, if you're not sure with your contacts, you can either post to the sales channel, or you can grab a buddy, or you can grab me, or you can grab Manoj. But let's get everyone comfortable, because until those contacts are being made as a regularity, we're not going to have the incoming appointments that we need in order to be able to ensure the success of the business endeavor. That means that all of those B2B leads are lost. That means deals that range from 10, 20 to 120 to even more $1,000 are not going to be had. Those meetings are not going to be scheduled. So if that is a point of uncomfortability, please let's get on top of that and find out what the source of that behavior is and talk about it. Because once it gets down to a process that you've done 50 times, sometimes it takes you less than 2 minutes. You'll be looking at work that might take someone else who's not trained on that 8 or 10 hours of their day, and instead it's going to take you 90 minutes. And it's not a very large amount of time commitment for level 1 when you're really simply just taking a look at someone's job title, taking a look at the about section on their profile, picking something appropriate to say. It clips it all into that template box for you, and you simply fill in the blanks. I think that's something that all of us can handle. Okay, so that being said, today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about personality types. Now, what was that experience like for everyone who went and took that personality test?
It was very interesting.
So, what did you learn about your personality type, Sanjana?
Well, I learned some strengths and weaknesses which I may not have recognized.
Mm-hmm.
One of the weaknesses I could think of that I had experienced before, didn't realize it, was being overly idealistic,
Mm-hmm.
which is not good.
I think being overly anything is not good, but that's okay.
Exactly, yeah. So that was one thing, and some strengths that may not have been identified by my own self, like being naturally able to lead or at least like influence
Absolutely.
was something. Yeah.
But I know that Manoush and I could have given you that feedback. Sometimes we're not able to recognize those traits in ourselves. So I'm going to ask you an interesting question. After reading over your personality profile, if somebody else had that same personality, what would you do differently to try to persuade them?
I would try to specifically appeal to whatever comes out as their comfort zone in that personality. Like,
Right? And if they're idealistic, maybe find out what their ideals are, right?
oh yeah,
Right? Because if that's a breaking point for that personality and they can be too idealistic, that can guide their actions, right?
right.
All right, what about you, Karan? What did you learn about your personality type?
I'm the ESTP type, answer.
Mm-hmm.
I had taken the test before, it was the same type. So the biggest weakness or one shortcoming that I have observed in myself, and it's also present in the personality analysis that I got, is being unstructured and impatient. So sometimes I lack structure and organization at times in my life, and I just like to go all in, take whatever comes without a lot of planning, and sometimes I end up not executing it properly.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Now, if you were dealing with someone over messaging and they had that personality type, how do you think that their messages might appear when they're sent to you? Do you think that they would be longer and structured, or do you think that they would be shorter and kind of seem conversational?
Yeah, they're gonna be shorter.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if I tell them that okay, so I have been in this field for a long time. I've done this, and I might help you in taking over this particular project or something on those lines. Trying to send out a message to um, uh, reach us over a phone call or a strategy call. They would be like, okay, what time? Let's do it. Probably.
Okay, so if you were communicating with someone that had your personality type, those messages would be shorter, they would be more conversational, and
Yeah.
you wouldn't want to hit them with a whole bunch of structure at once or a whole bunch of steps because it would make them feel
Right.
overwhelmed and not want to do whatever it is you were trying to convince them to do, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What about you, Manoj? What did you learn about your personality type?
Wow, I learned that I'm more on the feeling side than the uh, thinking side.
Mm-hmm.
That has been a change, I think. Um, and I feel that change in myself as well.
Absolutely.
The judgment has given the like it. I was more judgmental earlier, but now it's more. What was the opposite of that? I think.
Perceiving.
Yeah, perceiving
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So one of the things I've noticed interacting with you, Manoj, is that as things have been moving on and you get to certain parts of the project, you're getting very excited. You're getting very emotionally motivated. So when you're starting to move to that personality type, being able to create enough structure that allows for genuine enthusiasm is what motivates action in a person with that personality type. What about you, Gaurav? What did you learn about your personality type?
Yes. So I'm an INTP, and everyone here is an extrovert, but I'm an introvert. Uh, yeah. So people like me can be analytical, serious at times. Uh, I like to go around and do some jokes and all. Uh, yeah. So that I do, but I don't know why it's written that this kind of type is always serious and stuff like that. Uh,
Well, what it can manifest itself as is that your
yeah.
humor is serious,
Mhm.
deadpan. Your humor is based off of ideas rather than feelings. So,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what that whole NT portion of INTP is all about. So,
Yeah.
one of the things I really wanted you guys to get out of this experience is understanding your own personality type and how communicating with someone who had that same type might be more effective for being able to influence someone. So, if you were dealing with someone who had that same personality type and you happen to know that, what is something that you would do differently to influence them?
Okay. I would understand that the other person firstly because I know that that person is like me only. So I know the plus points and the minus points. Like what kind of what kind of things does this person like? So I just do those things to them. You know.
Would you be detail oriented when you communicated with them?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Right?
that's what I like. Yeah.
Okay. And then what about you, Leslie? What was that experience like for you?
Um, it did give some clarity on how I decide on things, as well as how I communicate with other people. And also, it have given me another perspective as to what are the things that I can improve on. Um, the main takeaway that I have is part of the weaknesses for my personality type is I'm well, there's a fluctuating self-esteem. So whenever I'm able to deliver on things, it gives me my self-esteem goes high. However, whenever there's something that I was not able to complete, then it will usually take me a while before I'm able to bounce back. So
Mm-hmm.
being more aware of that would be able to would enable me to catch myself and just be more proactive in getting over it or just moving forward so that it would not lead to inaction because most of the time that's the challenge that I have.
Okay. So what with learning about your personality type, how would you want best to persuade someone who had that same personality type as you?
For me, well, the best approach that I will be doing is to be more of a listener and basically just asking more questions because for an ENFJ or based on
Mm-hmm.
what I have experienced before, people would usually would have an easier time open up opening up to me. So I'll be able to take advantage of that and just learn to ask more, practice and asking more so that I can relate back to them, making them feel that they're listened to, they're heard, and that's one of the thing that would actually build a relationship or build rapport with another ENFJ.
Okay. So what I wanted you all to get out of this experience is to recognize all of the different kinds of communication styles that happen with different personality types. There are 16 of them. And the behavior that would be really successful for one, for example, I'm an INTJ. I'm super structured, super ordered, I'm super detail oriented. I don't have any respect for authority or structure if it doesn't make sense. I constantly question and criticize everything. A person could flash something on my screen, and before they even tell me what it's for, I'll start correcting the spelling. This is the kind of stuff that happens with my personality type. It's just part of who I am. So the best way to talk to someone like me is to tell me what the goal is, show me all of the information, and then let me draw my own conclusion from the information. It's much more powerful than telling me what the conclusion is. So all of these
Right.
different communication styles, all right, the idea here is to show you that you cannot use the same communication style with every person. A lot of people are taught something called the golden rule, which is the idea that you should treat other people the way that you want to be treated. And that's a great idea at face value. But the problem is that it assumes that all people have the same values, the same ability to communicate, the same things that are important to them, or the ways that they resolve conflict. And that's simply not the case. So instead, back in the 90s, I believe it was, there was a business book that came out called the Platinum Rule. And the idea with the Platinum Rule is that instead of treating other people the way that you want to be treated, you need to learn how to treat people the way that they want to be treated. If you have an emotional communicator, you have to communicate with them with emotions. If you have a logical communicator, you have to communicate with them with logic. If you have that person who needs to be able to make their own conclusion, you have to have the space to be able to do that with them. And this is the most common mistake that people make when communicating with other people. And indeed, it's the most common cause of problems in relationships, because we will take an action, a statement, really anything in our environment, and then we will find ourselves becoming frustrated or angry or miscommunicating with others because they are not responding to that information the same way that we are. And it's because we're not respecting our differences. So when we take a look at the way that we communicate in like LinkedIn conversations, you have to take a step back for a moment and take a look at who you're talking to. Take a look at their about profile, get a sense of the journey that that person went through to get to that position. Take a look at the way that they are talking to you and answering some of those conversational lead-in questions. How are their ideas structured? How are their beliefs structured? Are they focused on emotion? Are they focused on facts? Are they communicating in short bursts? Are they asking you lots of questions and then waiting for you to respond? And once you find out that communication style, you have to use that communication style to build rapport. Because rapport, like we talked about before, is built by making a person believe that they are talking to someone like themselves, because that is what allows them to be vulnerable, to share their concerns, and to genuinely be motivated to follow advice. Is everyone on board so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any questions? No? Okay. So as this process is going along, we're going to be, opening with that leading question, and they're going to tell us about their industry. You need to, pay attention to the way that they answer. Are they avoiding a certain part of a topic? Are they avoiding having a full-on conversation with you because that conversation, for some personality types, you have to build rapport before you can have a conversation. So sometimes what that looks like is you'll send them an initial contact message and they'll say something weird like, I need to know who I'm talking to. It's something that you wouldn't necessarily expect out of someone, but it's a completely valid way of expressing oneself with different personality types. You may get a person who doesn't like to deal with social encounters and may even counter back and try to sell you a good or a service because that's what they've trained themselves to do in social encounters. And being able to diffuse those kinds of interactions is about stopping, taking a look at who you're communicating with, and then becoming goal oriented. So we're going to talk about that right now, because what level 2 is all about is being able to steer a conversation toward level 3, which means we're trying to get them to the point where we have enough rapport built and we've learned enough about what's going on in their industry and with them to be able to offer them a good or a service. That's when we bring in the closers, right? Everyone good on what the responsibility of a level 2 is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what does that look like? It looks like taking the answer that they give you and making a decision as to whether or not you want to build rapport by commiserating with them and talking with them about that concern so that they feel emotionally validated. If you want to build them up and give them a chance for their ego to get big so that they can feel more relaxed about being able to talk about a challenge or a change, it means framing. Some people will completely put themselves forward and say, oh, I'm having all this trouble with this and this and this and this, and I feel so overwhelmed. Other people, you'll have to pull that information out of them after having a 5 or a 10 message conversation. So level 2, and what I'm trying to prepare you for, is you cannot go into the next step of that conversational process simply trying to put the same thing into every message box. Yes, we can start conversations that way, but level 2 is about figuring out who it is we're talking to, how we need to talk to them, and then how we steer the conversation to what we want to talk about. So what is it that we want to talk about? Well, we want to talk about whether or not we have the ability for, as a B2B, to offer them a strategic session where we can solve their problems and we can charge them for it. So that's going to require a few things, right? We're going to take a look at the profile and make sure that we're dealing with a decision maker, that we're dealing with someone who has the resources to be able to afford our service, and our conversation that we're investing in is going to be moving toward the goal of getting them to talk about the challenges of their industry. And you have to make the decision while you're communicating with them how many steps of rapport you want to go through before you get them to talk about those challenges. Is it necessary to sit and have a back and forth conversation with them for a while? Well, one of the things that indicates that is if they communicate in really short bursts. If they communicate in really short bursts, you might need to put a follow-up on that conversation because you're going to be communicating in short bursts as well, and set the follow-up time to be a lot shorter because you're going to have to just throw a few sentences back and forth in order to match that conversational style. Maybe you're dealing with a very structured person, and so you're going to need to show them that you're structured too, even if what you're talking about is completely conversational or about the question that they answered. This is a more of a dynamic process, and I'm going to be giving you lots of training on it, and we're going to break it down into steps. That's why we haven't gone into examples yet. And the reason for that is that the purpose of our training today is I want you to think about a person that you have in your sphere of influence who does not have even a slightly similar personality to you. But it needs to be someone that you can get to take this test. So that looks like talking to auntie, talking to mom, talking to your sister, talking to a friend, someone who has a very different personality from you. And I want you to get them to take that same test that I linked you. I want you to look at the 4-letter results. You can either just get the results from them and look up the profile yourself, or if it's a friend and you think it'll be fun, you can read through those results with them. And when we meet next, I want you to talk to me about what you would do differently in your communication to be able to connect to that person. And when we come back to meet up with that on that topic, we're going to go into some actual level 2 conversations, and I'm going to show you how to put that into action. Does that sound exciting?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
All right. As an added bonus, when I start to move into level 3, when I start to give you guys some awesome training, I'm going to teach you how to be able to identify a person's 4-letter personality type just by talking to them. And that's where ultimately we're going to get. And that is a superpower. Because if you can do that in everyday life, you have the power to completely change the way that people frame ideas and emotions, and even change their firmly held beliefs. And that is the strongest power of persuasion. And it starts with you finding someone who works very differently from you, getting them to take that test, and I want you to read over that personality. Obviously, you don't need to go into romantic relationships and all of that. Just find out their personality, and maybe find out their personality at work, and think to yourself, what would I do differently to communicate with that person? So that's going to be the objective of our next sales meeting. I want everyone to do that. I need someone to reach out to Abhishek and make sure that he is clear on that assignment. Okay. All right, guys. I'm going to break the meeting, and then remember your assignment for next sales meeting. You're going to have the 4-letter personality type of someone who has a very different personality from you. I want you to read their personality profile and decide what's going to be different about the way that you would communicate with them to persuade them. And then we're going to dive in hardcore into some level 2 conversations, and we're all going to get comfortable with it. So get excited about that, because that is literally the meat of sales training right there.